huge night for Aston Villa, beating Newcastle United 4-1 in the Premier League to boost their chances of qualifying for the Champions League in successive seasons. Not something that many teams managed to do outside of the commercial six, shall I say. But Villa, now with 5 games to play in the Premier League, they're in a strong position. Of course, they go to Manchester City on Tuesday and they have tricky games against Fulham and Bournemouth to come, and then the last pair of matches against Manchester United and Tottenham. But on today's game, really, a win, especially after Manchester City beat Everton, felt even more important when you look at the table. Going to the Etihad would have been, and it still is, a game which Villa will be targeting a win in. But going there, having maybe lost to Newcastle or dropped 2 points in what is their third last home game of the season, it would have felt like you've got to go to the Etihad and win. The pressure would then be mounting. You're then asking for the teams to drop points, and while those things are still, in play, beating Newcastle is one thing. Thrashing them by 4-1, really, that could have been the scoreline at half-time. And Villa were clearly full value for their victory. They outplayed Newcastle. Their tactical plan set up by Unai Emery was devised perfectly, and we can't forget this Newcastle side have had the better of Villa in the last, couple of years really. I think they've won the last 3 against them. Villa obviously were on the end of a couple of batterings at St James, and you don't want to talk too much about the away games against Newcastle because Villa tend to lose there anyway. But at home against them, it's usually been a different story, apart from last season when they lost 3-1. Fabian Schär scoring twice, I think, at the Holte End. Today, just the once. I'll get on to him soon in a more controversial topic that was just after Villa had gone ahead in the game. But that win for Newcastle here last season ended Villa's long unbeaten run at home. Now they've extended it even further to, is it 19 games now, I believe, without a defeat at Villa Park. It's a sensational record, and one which, really, that's kind of, when you say that, that's almost title-winning form, in the sense that you don't lose home games. But Villa have dropped, of course, points against Ipswich, West Ham. There's some frustrating results in there. So, late goal against Brighton, that Tariq Lamptey goal, you can see almost like a mile off, because in that point in Villa's season, that's what was happening. They weren't looking as comfortable and as confident as they do now at Villa Park, even though they weren't losing games. Now they're beating teams and brushing them aside, and that Newcastle team is a top quality side, it really is. The midfield is excellent, and I know a lot of Villa fans kind of indulging a lot in the whole Townley and Bruno Guimaraes is worth 99 million. Kamara and Tielemans are signed on a free, and that's true, and you love to see their performances today. But at the same time, the third in the table, Newcastle aside, who last week, or even a few days ago, after thrashing Palace, their fifth win in a row, I think, in all competitions, or in the league 6 in a row they had won in all competitions before playing. 9 goals scored in the last 2 games, Newcastle. Only Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool, beg your pardon, with a better away record this season. So this is a proper team. We're not talking about, we're talking about a Champions League challenger, a fellow Champions League challenger to Villa, but also a side who, after a little bit of inconsistency at the start of the season, have been putting up form which puts them in and around second place, and that's the kind of point I was trying to get to just then. Only a few days ago, you're looking at can Newcastle take Arsenal with their foot off the gas a little bit in the league, go for the Champions League now, aren't they? Mikel Arteta's side, but Villa are denting that hope of Newcastle's, and I think they'll still be okay for Champions League, Newcastle, I do. But who cares? Villa have won 4-0, and that's the main point today. As I say, a lot of people thinking that they're okay for Champions League anyway, but that's even more of a statement win, therefore, from Villa. This evening, as I said, the 4-1 could have been a half-time scoreline. Ollie Watkins putting Villa in the lead early on, and I said this in the pre-match show that we did on Claret and Blue, that actually, it's kind of easy to look at Villa played PSG, and after the Lord Mayor's show and all of that stuff that's kind of hit them earlier in the season, hadn't won for many games after a Champions League, but that was then. This is a much deeper, richer squad who half of the players are angry. Ollie Watkins said as much himself and admitted he was furious to not play in the 2 games against PSG, starting in the 2 games against PSG, I must say. He had a conversation with Emery, let him know, and to kind of make him under no illusion that he was obviously very annoyed to miss those games in terms of starting, and other players too, he said. But you must use that as motivation to prove Emery, I wouldn't say wrong, because Villa won against PSG 3-2, but make a point. And this is all Unai Emery's work coming together, by the way. To have players that are angry that they're not starting is good. But also then, I guess it's recruitment as well, and obviously Ollie Watkins played that Dean Smith recruited all those years ago. But it's having the right personalities in the dressing room. One bad egg can disrupt things. One player in the ear of another saying, "Oh, you should have started, mate. You should be annoyed about this. You should, all these different things. Have a word with these people." But that's not the case. They're all fighting for the same goal at Villa. It's a huge squad, one which is too big to the point where you can't fit some players in the team. Bogard, Pau Torres, and Leon Bailey all missing out today. Emery said no injury there, it's more just he has to pick a squad, and there's a limit on that at the moment, unfortunately, for those players, but fortunately for the rest of the squad, because and fans, managers alike, because this is exactly what gets you in these positions and allows you to compete across all sorts of different competitions. Sidetracked there a little bit. This video could be an hour long, but my arm is going to get weaker and weaker as we go on. So there's a lot to talk about. Ollie Watkins opening the score in the first minute. Villa, did I get to my point in the first part? Sorry if this is a bit scattergun and I'm going and dodging into different places. It's a video that hopefully shows my excitement of the big result. But the point I was trying to say is that Villa actually using Champions League disappointment to fuel them getting back in the competition, and it wasn't like Villa had kind of 1-0 up part of France, then 1-0, 2-1, 3-1. In terms of, it's kind of a back and forth, and Villa are in the game and out of the game and in the game. They were 5-1 down in the tie at Villa Park at one stage, and they galvanised themselves back into going 5-4 behind, 3-2 on the night. So I don't know quite to put that, but it's not as if there was a huge negative and you could be on a downer because you've missed it narrowly in terms of you could have had it in the first leg because it was a 2-2, and then in Villa Park you went toe to toe and it was 3-2, 3-1, 3-0, sorry, 4-3, 4-4, that sort of thing. Villa were down and out in the eyes of a neutral, but the players themselves, John McGinn saying that they probably thought that Villa were done, but that wasn't the case. And they were going to have an easy night, and it didn't prove that way at all for PSG. Unfortunately, Villa didn't get those goals at the very end. Luck really on PSG's side there. And today I thought Newcastle were going to get a bit lucky when Ollie Watkins smacked the crossbar, which would have made it 2-0 at the time, and then hits the post as well. I think in between those two times where he hit the woodwork, that's when Fabian Schär was only given a yellow card for pulling him back when the ball went over the top. For me, that was a red card, and I do think I'm pretty balanced in terms of my views on what Villa and whoever else on what they're doing. But that was a red card for me. The ball was in behind. You don't know if Watkins is going to get that ball or not. Therefore, as it is partially subjective, I guess, I think you probably are denying a goal scoring opportunity. Who knows if Pope will backtrack, trying to get back to his goal, or if Pope will wipe him out like I think I'm pretty sure Pope wiped someone out a few weeks ago, getting slow off his line. And anyway, for me it was a red card. I think Schär got away with one. Obviously, he goes down the other end and scores a header. Constant just keeping him on side. Matt's in a bit of a mismatch at the back post, heads in. Martinez probably could have done a little bit better, but maybe being a bit picky there. And Villa in the first half made so many chances. Rodgers, I think for 30 minutes was crowded out a little bit by Newcastle's they're very physical players, and I think they did a bit of a job on him in the first 30 minutes, but then that changed. Had a moment where Pope saved a shot from his, and then I think he beat the whole midfield. Rodgers running up the pitch, Jolinton goes in the book, and Watkins having a penalty claim play on in the first half as well. That gets waved away. I think again it's one of those where the referee gives it, doesn't get overturned. It didn't happen like that though. Jared Gillett didn't award a spot kick. Going to half time, 1-0. Villa, frustrated and probably quite mardy about not being a few goals ahead, to be honest. Bit that changed in the second half. Ian Maatsen, he's really coming into his own now. I said this a few weeks ago that I do feel like his defence defensively is getting better. Going forward, I don't think that's ever been in question. It's a fantastic wing back, and the word that I always seem to use in my play ratings for Maatsen is scampering, because you can picture him now just up and down the line like a ferret almost, just constantly making movements to harm the opposition defence. And for him to score, I think it was his first league goal today. I think if you played him for 38 games, I'm not saying to get in double figures, I'm not going to go crazy, but he'd definitely chip in with a few. I remember the Leicester goal, which he didn't score, but I think it was I can't remember now actually. He pulled it across the box for someone to, that was Leon Bailey, of course. I think it was his first league goal of the season actually. Pulled it across for him to convert, and that was from, lost my bearings, that was from Maatsen coming on, making them back, say, scampering down the left side, winning the ball back in this case, laying it across, goal for Bailey to score. And then you're looking at Villa trying to hold the lead. Emery makes 2 changes. John McGinn comes off. John McGinn again, sensational, superb against PSG in both legs. My man of the match in both of those games by a mile. Not to discredit what Villa did, or his teammates did in that second leg themselves, but the first leg he was outstanding, and carried that work on again. What was I going to mention? John McGinn and someone else came off. I can't remember. Was it Asensio? I think at the time I was a bit frazzled and a bit puzzled by why McGinn came off, because I think it's so crucial in terms of what Villa do out of possession, and that's exactly the play that I'd want on the pitch at that point. And then my comments were quickly made fun of, essentially, in the press box when Jacob Ramsey pulls the ball across the box. Obviously I was happy about it, don't get me wrong. Dan Burn putting it into his own net, and then Amadou Onana crashing the ball in from outside. I think it was outside the box, around there anyway, past Nick Pope to make it 4-1 to Villa. Ramsey then hitting the post, could have been 5. And I said at the time, this is exactly how it feels when you're at St James's, only that it's Newcastle, obviously the home team there, scoring these goals against Villa. That's everything that we felt. So definitely similarities in terms of how that feels. Villa fans who head to St James's will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a horrible feeling, but of course when we beat them 3-0 a few years ago, again, similarities to that in terms of just outplaying them, outworking them. Put a tweet out saying that Tielemans and Kamara made that midfield look distinctly average, and stand by it, because that's the midfield, which I say earlier in the video, the excellent side Newcastle really are. Townley's a brilliant midfielder, one of the best in the Premier League. But so's Yuri Tielemans then, because he's done a job. Him and Kamara, and you double McGinn into that, and Rodgers. Tactically, it has to be a full midfield, in the Villa shape, all that stuff to kind of block against their talent and quality, of course. But just in terms of the double pivot, made them look pretty average. Jolinton, for a guy that's absolutely tall and strong, powerful, he was left on his arse a few times from what McGinn does. Rodgers as well, running forward. So it's a superb performance, and it must be said, I probably should have said this earlier, Alexander Isak, nope, nothing there, and that's absolutely credit to Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa, of course. Mings coming in for Torres in this game, not surprising me at all. Again, that's nothing, it's not slight really against Torres, it's more so that we know what Mings can do against a physical striker, and they kept him out of the game for the whole game, and he came off, I think, after the third goal or even the fourth, I'm not sure. But he comes off and you forget that he's been playing in, during that second half. In the first half he had a couple of moments, Isak, but nothing to threaten Villa by any stretch of the imagination. Jacob Murphy, who's had a fantastic season supplying Isak, didn't supply him. Harvey Barnes didn't score, got an assist, but always seems to do something against Villa. To round this off, fantastic result, 4-1. What was key was 3 points. The fact you can beat Newcastle 4-1 is just a statement to the rest of Villa's fellow Champions League chasing sides, and kind of say it's from what you say from here is that if Villa win all their games, they'll be in the Champions League. Well, that isn't kind of mathematical. Oh, actually, no, of course it is, because they beat City. So I think that would be mathematical, actually. But the point I'm trying to make is that, where are we? 5 games remaining of the season. It's not a whole lot of time left now. In the games which Villa are playing, you don't want to kind of look too much into the running, because Villa at the moment are playing with such verve, and they're playing so well. This is this is a side who I don't think anyone is rolling out is the wrong word, but tipping against to finish in the Champions League. I think a lot of people now are saying that Newcastle, City and Villa, and that seems to kind of be the main true that people are saying. Maybe Forest fall out of it. I don't think that's guaranteed. Forest can quite easily beat Spurs away and go. I think they'll be again 3 points ahead of Villa in the table, I think. But I think as long as Villa concentrate on their job, teams will drop points at some stage in different games. But you'd back Villa to go to the Etihad and get at least a draw, which I think would be a sound result, really. Obviously a good opportunity to go above them, and then from there 4 games left, win those Champions League football banked. But yeah, if you can go to City and win, and why can't Villa do that, by the way? They're in a really good position to get Champions League football again. So yeah, really exciting times. Obviously you've got a FA Cup semi-final coming up soon too. But for now, I think this night is probably as good as it gets in terms of playing against Newcastle. You've got no injuries, you've scored 4 goals. No clean sheet, to be fair. But that's not anything to worry about at this stage of the season. The 3 points is clearly the main thing. I wasn't particularly confident Villa were going to beat Newcastle, mainly because Newcastle's away form is fantastic. I know Villa's home form's good as well, but obviously all good things do come to an end. Hopefully, not until, well, can't say never, not until maybe next season, and if Villa can win the next 2 home games against Fulham and Spurs, definitely achievable, of course, we can go for Europe. Spurs in the Europa League semi-finals, possibly against the final. That game will be moved if Villa gets an FA Cup final. Europa League final's been played between that FA Cup final / Spurs game and Man United, so that'll be an interesting time to play those 2 teams if they get there. But yeah, those are the 2 home games, and then 3 away games remaining. Bournemouth will be difficult, they go for Europe too. United is Old Trafford, it's Man United, and then of course City as well. So yeah, games aren't going to be easy. Playing Aston Villa certainly isn't easy either.